Okay, we are live, 2/20, 2025. The madness continues. And this is the Ips Evening Deprogram. Most of you listening tonight, I'm sure, have already attained what you could call the status of deprogrammed. But just to be clear, the default is we are all programmed. There really is no opt-out. If you're born into it, you have to go through the process of programming. Even the programmers are themselves deeply programmed. I would say 90%. I think that the people who are participating in this big psy war on the other side, so to speak, are themselves highly mind controlled or compartmentalized, like Truman shows. Like, I still wonder about Musk. Does he even know space is fake? Does he have the security clearance to know this? Which is kind of interesting to think about, how much more in the know we are as outsiders and skeptics than the people who are deepest in the know from their own perspective. You know, the insiders are compartmentalized, to say in the least. We're joined by Skyfish, Frank Murr, Will Niedrich, Roxy W. Thank you for joining. Lots to talk about tonight. Let's go to the IPR points of interest. And by the way, we had gremlins, and we were shut down multiple times on the random. So I spent the last day researching the matter, and I've updated some drivers. I don't expect any issues, so tonight we're just going to do a run with a simple one window display. And if it works fine and nothing drops, then I'll turn on the secondary things, like the numbers, the phone numbers, that is, the camera, for example, and everything else. The Godzilla sound effects, which are really a huge part of this channel. All right, let's move on. Musk wants to WTC7 the ISS. He wants to do it soon. This has already been discussed, but he wants to do it soon, as in like next week. He wants to pool the ISS. And I've been describing the space station as representing the Tower of Babel for some time. All nations, one language, singular mission from Earth to the heavens. And it's one of these things that you see in the metascript, the story of the West being described as this Tower of Babel and its influence and how it's about to fall. So that's interesting in itself. I have a lot of metascript decodes pertaining to the ISS falling. One of the finest examples is in the Netflix series The 100. Season 1, Episode 13, 113. The space station comprised of 13 nations and their space stations merged into one. This big space station falls. Again, Season 1, Episode 13 of The 100. Tons of significance there, but 113, of course, is the date of the One World Trade Tower. And these things all connect. What's fascinating here is how there's a closed system of information with the mainstream news media, which I contend constitutes a fictional universe, but that it exists as something of a subset of the entertainment media. Like, which is a bigger influence over our lives? The stories in our entertainment and what we immerse ourselves in voluntarily, or just the background noise of the news. Like, these things aren't really separate. They've effectively merged real and fake. And it's interesting to watch people who are in the Truman Show trying to pretend like they can see through something. It's always one foot in the matrix. And we're at this point where if you can't quarantine from the people who can't discern real from fake because they're operating on the false premise that the screen is a window to the world and not a filter, if we don't quarantine from that, we're never going to make any progress. That's just my point here. Trutherville is running circles around the same stories. It's like 2016 all over again. I'm seeing a lot of hopium. Instead of Gasara and Nasara money from the white hats, now it's coming in the form of Doge money. Anyway, they buy it all. What's up, Program Truther? Ears up, Flozik, Angst G, Verkjun. Okay, so one of the things I want to talk about, Musk is going to WTC 7 or pool the ISS. And the movie ISS came out last year, January 19th. and it had Russia and America fighting for control of it because we were at war on Earth. And what's happening right now? Right now, the Russians, the cosmonauts, have kind of shut themselves onto their own side. There was supposedly a leak, a hole, and they had to close the hatches. And there's been this story evolving up there in the space station. So the idea of it falling is actually pretty consistent with what we were predicting based on the timing of the release of ISS. Antifa on meth with Uzis. Now, if you remember my breakdown of the madness, which I've been referring to since it came out right before Luigi Mangione shot the CEO, and it predicted that event. And it also forecasted Musk in his present form. It had this character as billionaire financing Nazis online who influenced and even stole the election for his side. And it goes deep. I've been noting these recent connections between Musk and this character in the movie. It even ties into Musk throwing the Sig Heil, or Musk putting 14 American flags on a retweet, a reference to 14, a neo-Nazi number, a code that they use. In fact, in the madness, the billionaire is talking to the leader of the online Nazis, who's known as Brother 14, leader of the Forge. And the 14 is a reference to a statement it's a number of words in a sentence, which neo-Nazis use to describe the need to protect their country for the future. And that's pretty much what Trump was quoting with his Napoleon quote about Hughes protecting his country, breaks no laws. And interestingly enough, that quote isn't really from Napoleon, but rather it's from a movie about Napoleon from the 70s. I mean, it's hard to say. Like, Napoleon Bonaparte is credited with saying history is lies agreed upon, which is true. And there's some evidence suggesting that Napoleon Bonaparte might be a historic personage, a construct, much like Trump. And that's why I think the association was made, by the way. And there are some fascinating connections between Trump, Revelation 9/11, Abaddon, Apollyon, Apollo, or Napoleon, the exterminator, the destroyer. All these epithets, these descriptions of this character, all ultimately do lead back to Donald Trump. King Trump now, if you've been watching the news. Okay, Gabby Petito deep dive. So I've been creating short videos. I uploaded one today for members, these deep dives, and I just watched the Netflix special on Gabby Petito, and I'm going to upload a video about this tomorrow, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. But what's interesting about it, the more I watch it, and I'm almost through with it, I got about 5 more minutes to go on the third part. It's like 3 episodes long. It looks to me like a massively well-funded movie / psyop, like a reality TV show. Like, I really am willing to make the case that the Gabby Petito event was totally fake. And the most convincing evidence they have, well, it's not really even evidence. The most compelling case they make is just the emotions that the main characters have in this documentary. You know, these supposed family members, however you want to look at it. But when you look at the surrounding information, it all kind of falls apart, and that's what I'm really honing in on here with this Gabby Petito story. And I have some ideas as to the possible motivation, but many have noted that she was in a music video for the Sandy Hook event, and 2 of her brothers were in that music video with her. And so I'm just suggesting that this might be a continuation, or rather a production from the same crew, that the same resources that go into the psyops, it has the same agenda all around, and I think that some families are a part of it. It's connections, etc. They get repeat gigs, but that alone should make people look twice at it. But I'm watching it. I'm taking note of symbolism, keywords, etc. I've watched this documentary on Netflix, and I'll have some stuff to go through tomorrow. Verkjon said, is there a way to get a press pass and get it shipped to Canada? Yes, there is. Yes, there is. I don't know if I've marked it for U.S. only. If so, I'll make sure I change it. I just wanted to make sure I had them in hand before I made them available. So yes, press passes are available. And we are getting more active now. In fact, I have this idea for the IPR Press Club. If you're a press pass carrier, and this is even if you don't have a press pass, but I want to have a specific think tank set aside for people who want to be more involved with the press club. And we have a history, we have something of an agenda, a purpose, but I want this particular Discord server and these particular Hangouts to be focused. It seems like a lot of the Discord servers often got, I'm not going to say hijacked, but they got off topic. And if you're debating Mandela effects and simulation theory and chemtrails, for years in a row, you're just kind of stuck in a rut. We got to be, I think, smarter than this. We don't have enough time to be running around these rabbit trails endlessly. We have figured out enough that we can stand on it. And that's the next phase. And having the IPS Insider tabloid in circulation was really what is kicking this off. And I'm going to be opening it up to contributors, whether writers, reporters, researchers, meme lords, if you can meme. We can use memeage, comic strips, comic books, whatever happens to be. So you'll get information for that if you're on any of my newsletters. So you'll never miss anything. Just make sure you subscribe at Tim Oz. Actually, there's two of them. There's Tim Osmond at Substack and IPS.monster. Okay, let's move on. 0 Hour. I started watching 0 Hour, and this is a new Netflix miniseries. And I started watching it because it's Robert De Niro. And for the last year, we have been honing in on Robert De Niro and his role in predictive programming regarding Donald Trump. And this is all tied into the event of 7/13 with specificity. We're talking the head wound, the shooting of the assassination attempt. This is something intrinsic to many of De Niro's roles. For example, Taxi Driver, Travis Bickle. In that role, he inspired John Hinckley Jr. to shoot Reagan. That character was the basis for Joker 2, largely based on Taxi Driver. De Niro was in Joker 2, and he's the one getting shot. So in one, he's the assassin. In the other, he's the assassinated. He plays a Senator McLaughlin in Machete, giving a speech about immigrants when he's shot at. Someone's ear gets shot, the shooter's ear. There's just so many examples we can point to where De Niro specifically. And we honed in on him because he had the whole Trump derangement syndrome explosion. It erupted out in front of the courthouse. And I said, there's no way it's a coincidence that De Niro is out here. And it all ties into the assassin theme. So now I see him in 0 Hour, and he's playing the role of a former president. So I kind of assumed, since it's 0 Hour, we're talking about cyber attacks, the entire infrastructure being shut down, like Leave the World Behind, it's on Netflix. I kind of assumed it was going to be another Trump, that De Niro is going to play Trump in some capacity. But no, actually, in this one, his character is Biden. I've only watched half of episode 1. It's based on Biden. I thought so when I saw him running and jogging. They're always trying to show Biden as, virile and active and running around and jogging and stuff. Like, they do this with all these politicians. They dress them up like they're training, like they're Rocky Balboa. Well, they did the same thing with Robert De Niro. Like, one minute he's swimming, and then he's... And of course, Biden, known swimmer, purportedly swam nude in front of his Secret Service agents. But the exercising, and then he's running with the dog. And I thought, okay, this has got to be Biden. Well, then they get into the scene where he's talking to a biographer, and she says to him something about, why did you just drop out? Everyone thought you were going to win. And insinuating that he was forced out, and he can't talk about it. And so she's trying to get the story, why was this guy forced out? And a female president assumes control. So obviously that would be Kamala. Biden steps out. But interestingly, he goes on about how he was too focused on the death of his son. So these are things that are strictly Biden. The death of the son, a lot of his persona. So anyway, it's Biden. And then it goes to this 9/11 like scene after in Manhattan after this big EMP blast or whatever it is, this hacking that shuts everything down. We're talking about 0 hour. And in this scene, and I have a clip here, Otto Hoaxer in TV miniseries 0 hour. So there's this scene here where they're walking down the street. De Niro, the president, former president, he's talking to the fire chief about these two trains that derailed, which again ties to Trump, Palestine, Ohio. And they're talking about how the second train hit, and it sounded like second plane. So it's very 9/11-y to say in the least. I don't want to play it because I don't want to get a copyright strike, but I have an image here where this guy is screaming, "They're all crisis actors. There's probably nobody even down there," referring to the subway tunnels. So two subways colliding, or two subway cars colliding. Well, anyway, the Otto Hoaxer starts a riot. He incites a riot. So someone's like, "You can't say that, my kid's down there." Just like how we call an event fake and somebody will say in the chat, "Oh, that's my best friend." People just lie. I mean, they really do. And that's how you get into power. This is the lie world order. Who was that? George Santos. Remember that guy? Big liar. He lied too much. He went a little too far. You can lie and lie and lie, but if you take it too far, you risk destroying their entire structure of lies. I mean, this guy was like, "Yeah, my grandparents died in the Holocaust. My parents died in 9/11. I died at Sandy Hook." And nobody questioned him until, he reached a certain level and it was too late. Marco says, "Finding coincidences for past events is useless." Actually, it's not. And here's why. What we are revealing here are not coincidences. What we're revealing here is the intrinsic, the structural fakery. And this is revealed by showing how all of the major fake events, the big psyops we talk about, are directly correlated with stuff happening in the entertainment at that time. It's not just in the past. I'm talking real time. Here I am watching Netflix The Madness, and the next day I see it happening on the streets. Some assassin shoots a CEO with a 3D printed gun. We have the characters of Nick Fuentes, assassination attempts. We have Musk on the world stage ascending to new heights of power, etc., right out of the movie. And we're consistently noticing this and pointing it out. So no, it's structural, and what it reveals is entrainment between all entertainment. And we're talking about government co-opted entertainment, and it's monolithic. Nothing is free of this influence. And even if you're an independent media organization or independent film production company or whatever, maybe you're not deliberately and a part of this structure, but if you operate within their fictional universe, you still are by default. And if you don't operate within their rules, within their parameters, well, you just get unacknowledged or censored. But what we have revealed, and this is why it's not useless, what we have ascertained here is the only true conspiracy. You can stop worrying about chemtrails and deep states and all these other conspiracy rabbit trails people follow. All that stuff is just designed to scare you. The scaredest people on the internet are the anti-vaxxers. You can drop all the scary stuff and focus on the one true conspiracy that we can actually prove to you every day, and that is that there is a one world government already installed. There's nothing you can do about it, and they write history in advance, and they perform it for us on TV in what we think of as news events. The psyops steer the narratives that even the real news organizations or real reporters are bouncing off of. So yes, this singular monolithic entity controls all news for the purposes of writing our history. And why would they do that? Well, who controls the present, controls the future, controls the past? This is all just basically about worldview warfare. They write the past, and if you don't believe it, well, then you haven't been paying attention. I mean, if you don't know the extent to which fake news goes unchallenged, and what happens to it? I mean, you might not think about these fake stories, but they matter. The fake matters. And it matters because it aggregates, it piles up. And if you just look back, you have to admit at least 3% of the fake news gets carved into stone and turns into history. Fake news becomes history. So our history is fake, not 100%, but it's dominated by the fake stories. So the small percentage of hoaxes drive everything else. And if our history is written in advance, then whoever writes it has total control. They control time. And this is one of the main themes. If you look at the symbolism of Saturn, the cube, all these weird occult symbols that tie into Saturn, it's all about controlling time and space. There was a big reveal in Francis Ford Coppola's movie Megalopolis with the design authority, who looked just like the strangers from Dark City, which it was an allusion to. And they represent this Saturnian brotherhood that controls time by controlling history, by controlling the media. So we're pointing out mass mind control. And we have consistently predicted trends and future events. In fact, I put out in 2020 in this book called Metascript Decoded that Musk's Dragon would be involved in the takedown of the ISS. I thought it was going to be an accident, but no, they're going to pay him something like $843 million to pull it down.